not 500 points up as you hit Rayquaza, that is still the fight that matters. You know, no matter what's gone on in that game, that is the moment that matters in Pokemon Unite with the way that the game is currently set up. So if a team, if they are on the back foot due to whatever reason, if they can hold on just until that fight, have some good levels, have your Unite moves ready, you can still win that game based on the way that the combat experience works in Pokemon Unite. So I think you're absolutely right. You have to make sure that you have the right team for it in that fight. And Slowbro is a great pick because, of course, that slow beam, whilst it is a long cooldown, takes somebody out of the fight instantly. And if you can get that onto the other team's carry, that can pretty much win you the fight if you can get that KO with your team backing you up. But that's another important point, isn't it? You have to have that teamwork. You need your team backing you up. And if there's somebody on the opposite side that is disrupting or causing chaos, we see these speedsters get into the back, into the flank quite easily. That really could disrupt a team. So all about keeping a clear head, making sure that your teamwork is on point, and we'll have to see who comes out on top of this one.
Yeah, it's going to be tough matchups from this point forward. Luckily, there is that lower bracket because it is a double elimination bracket tournament right now that we're in. So everybody here in the top 8, they will still have a chance no matter who loses this next upcoming match. But obviously, you want to try to push your way through winners as far as you possibly can. You go into grand finals through the winners bracket and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. So I think that every team here is trying to keep that undefeated. But one thing that we had talked about that's really interesting, there is nobody undefeated in our tournament. Bracket stage, you have a chance to reset yourself and try to go without a loss, but none of these teams went through that Swiss stage without taking a loss. All of them have faced defeat at this point. So nobody has a clean record. Nobody is guaranteed anything.
Exactly that. So these teams do have some experience from yesterday on being in that back foot. We actually saw quite a few game threes coming out as well yesterday. So a lot of fighting happening for these teams. They went through quite a lot, and now they have to do the same again today. As you mentioned, it is double elimination. So you want to keep in that winner's side if you can. You're going to have a bit more of an advantage there because as soon as we go down to that loser's side, you're kind of in that best of one, and it is all or nothing. But here we go, Speedy. We're going to head into the game here. Nouns Esports are on the purple side. They're going to get the first pick. Sanguine are on our orange side.
Yeah, the first band's coming out here too. It looks like hovering some of those more defensive utility types. That Umbreon, who can be so bulky, so tanky. One of the only things that speedsters are still going to have difficulty handling at this point. And the Blissey as well, one of the most reliable supports in the entire game. So those two are going to head out first. And now we see some of those damage dealers getting banned out. Actually, only the Miraidon. All the speedsters were still left. Sanguine have gone for a totally support ban.
That's really interesting. And will Bruv go for the Snorlax? Yes, they will. That is a very good comfort pick they want to take. We also know that on the side of Nouns, they love those speedsters. That might be next Sanguine here, trying to see what they can get access to. Psyduck has been banned out. That's usually a straight pick that they like to go for. But no, Scout is going to pick up the Absol, and they take the Talonflame as well, Speedy. They mean business.
I think we understand why they didn't ban those speedsters now. They're looking to take them up. They want those available to them. Interesting to see the Absol here as well. Talonflame is one of those givens, but by picking the Absol, they have given that Gengar over to Noun, who do have a little bit of a preference to play it at this point. Now the Pikachu being hovered here. And yeah, it is going to be picked. So we're going to see the Pikachu attacker opting in instead of going for double speedster to double speedster in this one.
Interesting. We do get the Gengar, but yeah, Pikachu. I mean, Volt Tackle will work quite well against these speedsters, but I actually really like the Mage build as well. If you can get some CC onto them, the Mage build works well. Speaking about Mage builds, we have Inteleon. Miraidon may be banned, but the Snipe Shot is going to come out to play, and TVPR locks in the Trevenant, a really good defender. It's definitely good for displacing Pokemon, and that is exactly what it's going to need to do against Toon on that Gengar.
Trevenant is one of those that I've seen a little bit less of lately. It hasn't been around a whole lot. And speaking of which, Sableye, also not the most common supporter that I see around. The Wigglytuff, much more familiar. But the Sableye and the Trevenant are the two picks here that kind of feel like, well, everything really meta kind of got banned. The Psyduck, the Blissey, the Umbreon, those seem like things that you would want to go for prioritizing. But hey, the meta's shaking up. There might be some reads here that these new Pokemon are getting picked for. There are a lot of changes that are going to make some Pokemon better than they've been in previous patches.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why these tournaments are so good before they go into UCS tournaments, because they get to try things out here, Speedy. So we're seeing the Wigglytuff come out, we've seen the Sableye get put onto the field as well. So it's like they're trying to work out what does work against these speedsters. That is what everybody's been struggling to find the answer to right now. So I like this play from both of these teams. Try something different. I think the Wigglytuff is actually a really good pick. It's quite strong in the sense that the sleep is massive CC, and it's an absolute pain to take down as well.
Yeah, it's nice to see that they're using their entire line. They do have the double speedster, which is very important. They're actually not at as big of a threat, I would say, of needing to use that CC. It's not required of them to have as much of it. So they've gone for just a little bit of it in the support line, trying to use that and let their attackers, their offense really thrive. Their speedsters and their attackers. I mean, they do have a very squishy front line. They haven't brought any all-rounders to make up for the lack of HP. So there's going to be a lot of chances for Noun here to take longer fights than what Sanguine are going to be able to. They're going to want to wrap these ones up quick.
Absolutely. Here we go. Nouns Esports on the purple side. We see Sableye diving straight in for an invade here on the side of the Indie. Jigglypuff was going to try and do the same, but they did get vision on Sableye heading over there, Speedy.
Yeah, just got to get out of there. And I think I'm liking Sableye already. This little gremlin guy just heading around. I'm liking the way this plays. But there's been no issues so far with Fletchling being able to farm that jungle right now. So both teams just taking it slow, but there is a little bit of an engagement here on the orange side from Nouns. They've got their Lucario already taking some action. We could see the speedster shred already. Usually all-rounders are attackers that can take so much more damage. They can take longer fights, but Hepsel already shredding through.
There's a Dream Eater on the Haunter as well. If they can do enough onto this Jiggly, will they be able to take it down? No, they can not. That's the power of that support. It may be a support, Speedy, but it takes so much damage. It's pretty much a defender in that sense, and that's why people like to use it as a pseudo tank to say. But Nouns Esports, they're going to grab all of that central area.
Yeah, definitely having a bit of control, and it's a little bit late for Sanguine to try to contest it. They have to be careful here because both sides of this middle area are being kept. Keeping those auras online there is the Fletchinder, but there's a little bit of a push here from the side of Sanguine. They're taking heavy damage despite trying to push in deep. That was a really, really good defense from Nouns Esports to eliminate that Inteleon there.
Yeah, it's basement lane is definitely all Nouns Esports on the board. 44 points to the 4 right now. Lucario trying to put in a good session to defend onto this pad. They push them away with the 7 points. And with Sableye being here, they're not going to be able to rein those in. Jigglypuff is desperate for a tiny bit of experience. They need to become Wiggly and they need to do it quick. Whilst all this central area farm is going to be taken by a huge fly landing.
Yeah, that's another thing that right now Nouns Esports are going to have the advantage on is they're not relying on nearly as many evolutions right now. They've got just about everything at max evolution. Their stats are scaling very normally at a high rate. Right now, Sanguine have to get it going. They've got their support was just eliminated. They just found an elimination onto the support. They're finally starting to pull through these knockouts. They're sending all these back to the Pokemon Center now, getting some scoring. They've got the Wiggly on the board. It's starting to look like Sanguine can pick up some momentum here.
Yeah, Psycho Cut finally here on the Absol as well. They do find Drizzle, though, in that basement lane. And up here, Talonflame with a massive fly says goodbye to Lucario. Haunter does find Talonflame in return. And now they're Gengar Toon beginning to clean up Sanguine here to KO. There was a focus ban, but it doesn't matter. Gengar on top. Triple KO for Nouns Esports.
And that was exactly what Nouns Esports using their advantages. The early game, they had the evolutions. They could take whatever fight they wanted. They didn't have to rely on many evolutions on their side. Now that the evolutions are coming through for Sanguine, who tried to steal the Regice but don't quite get it. Now the Talonflame is in danger. They can't take these long fights, and Nouns are using that to their advantage, extending the time in these fights.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to take Brook down anyway, never mind being on the Snorlax with the block giving them a massive shield. So Sanguine trying to see if they can get a bit of an advantage in this basement lane, because up here, this T1 pad has been destroyed, Speedy. So now this Lecky is going to be free real estate for Nouns Esports.
Yeah, you really love having that first pad before the first Regieleki. Now that Regieleki's going out, moving towards the tier 2 already, They don't have a really big commit to this yet. You can see the Sableye and Snorlax are starting to move up, but it's a little too slow to fully push this Regieleki. I probably would have suggested focusing another area of the map if you didn't have your team there, because we can see it's already been cut down, so now it's just turning into a team fight. The Regieleki doesn't really gain you any distance.
Nah, trying to see what they can pick up. Toon has found Absol, though, using the Phantom Ambush for that. And if they can take down this Trevenant, that will be massive for Nouns Esports here. It is a Mage Pikachu that enables that to happen. Nvidia putting some good damage here onto Indy, but it looks like they're going to try and break some ankles. But with the sleep being there, they don't survive. Back to the Pokemon Center for them. But Snorlax does get themselves a good retreat back to their pad.
Mentioned that Wiggly being a supporter that feels like a defender, but now it's going in like an attacker as well. I'm really starting to fear the Wiggly tough. It's only at level 8 here, and it's still taking fights like that. 1v2s able to survive. These auras have to come back online for the Talonflame here. We can see the teleport going back as well. So a little bit of a reset for Sanguine right now. We can see how much presence in the middle of the map Nouns has. They are really taking over, and Sanguine look like they're getting ready for this next Reggie fight down in basement.
Oh, but they've been caught out on the Trevenant. That's such a shame. The Gengar is doing so much damage. Usually, they would struggle against those defenders like Trevenant, but this is the changes that have happened in the patch right now, Speedy. They're not even concerned about going up against the Trevenant. They're going to lock in that KO, get that Regirock for free. We do see Absol putting some pressure here onto this T1 pad, scoring the 29. They'll see if they can take down Bruv, but of course, that block just brings up a massive shield. Now, they're going to have to see if they can defend this, but no, they just break it with the 14, so not even close to an overcount. There's the power nap coming in from Snorlax. The Thunderstorm may be enough. The Flame Sweep wasn't able to pick them up, but Absol can with that Night Slash. They take them down, but Bruv is still on their feet. This is the power of Snorlax, Speedy. You need the Pokeflute, but they don't have it here.
No, the issue, of course, being the fact that it was all for survivability. Everything that was used there was for almost zero gain and just to minimize losses. That is not what you want to be using Unites for. And now the Speedsters fighting here in the middle as well. It's still going the way of Nouns Esports. They're starting to take away this late game. They have just a slight leveling advantage with that Gengar being the most dangerous Pokemon on the field right now. They can, of course, make up that distance, but it is looking tricky for the fact that they haven't picked up any Reggies and all the pressure has been on them at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We have really no Unite moves on the line. It's just Gengar there with the Phantom Ambush for now. So we're going to see both teams try and get as much experience as they can. And because there's not many on the field, it looks like they want to grab each other. Pikachu does get stolen there. It's easy for Inteleon to drop damage at that range.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages here. Pikachu does have a little bit of range to be used, but not nearly the likes of Inteleon, the most ranged thing on the map. Another thing here is the aggression that the Talonflames bring. So not only do you have distanced damage coming through from the Inteleon, but you can be approached from so far away. That Gengar gets caught out and taken down. Finally, Sanguine looked to have an advantage in this fight. All 5 down in basement lane right now. They're waiting for this last Reggie to come online to see if it'll be worth it before the Rayquaza fight.
And we're at a moment here where no Unite moves want to be used. They try and see if they can pick up Bruv. They do utilize that block to get themselves away, and Flail to sprint back to their pad. It is a Regi, so one of the buffs that most teams don't actually like to go for, but it looks like this is still going to be the fight. Adesu pots the Thunderstorm. There's the Flame Sweep as well, but it's Sanguine that come out on top. They found 2 KOs. Pikachu's going to fall here as well. Ganon, TTV, and they lock in the Regis. So not only do they get that buff, they get that global health onto them as well, but oh my god, Toon dives on in. They pick up 1 KO. There's the Phantom Ambush. They need to make the decision. Do they go for the Inteleon? They try to, but the Azure Spy Vision comes out in return. Midnight Slash is there as well. Sableye falls. Toon might not be able to survive this despite the Dream Eater being there. Absol comes out on top. The Rayquaza has literally just spawned, Speedy, but it does seem like Sanguine have the advantage right now. Bruv trying to see if they can disrupt up in this front line. We've got a rip onto the Rayquaza from Absol. Scout trying to do what they can. Ganon is there with the secure as well. Inteleon dives around, see if they can get the snipe shot onto it, but it's Talonflame who manages to lock that in. Now we get some Hundo Burgers raining on in. They might be able to win this game, but we have 1:30 left.
Yeah, just a minute 30. Started that Rayquaza fight a little bit late, but made it go by very, very quickly. And now this Absol does so much damage here in the late. It seems like there's no part of this game where that damage doesn't go through. We can see the score has now gone in favor of Sanguine. Noun have done their due diligence to put in as many points as they can, but with all these eliminations coming through, the Pikachu gets back just in time to eliminate the Absol, actually saves them a bit of time and keeps this score fairly close.
Wow, that's crazy. So now we have a minute on the board for a couple of backcaps to come in for Nouns Esports. The difficulty is they have a lot of Pokemon with a lot of points that are going to be difficult to score. Nvidia still has a Rayquaza shield. Pikachu and Desu's trying to see if somebody is in these bushes. They're very suspicious of it, Speedy. And of course, having that shield means an easy points raining in. And that's all they need to take this first game. The Azure Spy Vision comes out to defend this. Padtoon's going to dive on in there with the Brave, the Dream Eater, apologies, but they do manage to get the KOs onto Lucario, utilizing the Talonflame. The Power Nap in the backline is a really smart move from Bruff, but unfortunately, Absol does find the Gengar, and that looks like that's going to be game. Adesu with a huge defense onto Nvidia, but it doesn't matter here.
Yeah, I think the defense from Sanguine in the late game, usually after a Rayquaza win, you don't see teams falling back onto defense most of the time. Now Sanguine going to get themselves just a little bit more of a lead on the board. Now that's a much more definite win for them. But for a moment, it was looking very close, and Nouns had a chance if they could have won that team fight up top. They just may have been able to turn the tide of that game. But that's not what's going to happen. By over 200 points, Sanguine are able to put a bunch on the board in the last couple of seconds there in that match. And they do take the win in game one.
What a great game that was. It really came down to the decision for that basement Reggie to be the Rayquaza fight. And I think it was like 10 seconds out before Rayquaza even spawned. We started to see Unite moves getting popped off. And it was all advantage to Sanguine at that moment, Speedy. And look at these stats. I mean, 84k damage coming out from Scout. They didn't really have any concerns with anything they were coming up against on the side of Nouns.
No, it certainly had me worried. I was a little bit worried about that Rayquaza fight. All those Unite moves being used. I was watching those respawn timers very closely to see when those Pokemon would be coming back from the Pokemon Center, but it was not enough time. The Unite moves were used at an optimal time. It was a quick transition from that Regice to the Rayquaza, so close in fact that I wasn't sure if the timing would be there, but it was perfectly timed for the Talonflame to be able to find that execution onto the Rayquaza and just finish up that match. It was a really, really nice finish from Sanguine. They didn't panic when they were down in the early game, and even in the mid game, honestly, it took a lot longer for them to start coming back into it. And once they did, they just went on a roll. You can even see there where it changes from 3 Reggies lost in a row to winning a Regieleki, a basement lane Reggie, and Rayquaza all in a row. They really shifted the tide in the second half of the game, and it was impressive to see them keep their cool and be able to come back, especially when Nouns even tried to threaten them again toward the end of the game in the last 30 seconds.
Absolutely, and that says a lot about your team as well, because it is so easy in a game at this caliber to just lose your head a little bit when things aren't quite going your way. So fair play to Sanguine, keeping their cool-headedness about them, working as a team, picking up that extra experience that was on their side where they could to get themselves back into that game there, Speedy. So Nouns Esports, they're going to be a bit frustrated with that. It did look like they had the lead for the majority of that game. Will we see any changes to these bans, do you think? Do you think Nouns Esports had a bit of difficulty with any of the Pokemon on the side of Sanguine?
I think Nouns had a bit of difficulty with a few of the things that they saw on the side of Sanguine. I do think they need to target a speedster if they're not going to have the instant lock on several of them. I think that Nouns have succeeded when they've used those speedsters, but if they're going to opt not to, like we saw them do in the last game, they only used the Gengar. You have to target either that Talonflame or the Absol. You had different issues with both of them. The Talonflame was a lot more annoying, stealing things out of the jungle, able to finish off those Reggies, able to finish off Rayquaza. So if you want to focus those objectives, then that Talonflame can be a really good one to get rid of, force that onto somebody else, or at least out of the Talonflame's hands into a different Pokemon. Whereas the Absol was really threatening to being able to take anything more than a team fight. If you didn't have everybody available with your Snorlax in the front line, you were going to start getting picked down one by one. Even the Wigglytuff was struggling to survive against it, which was, judging by the beginning of that game, I didn't think anything could kill Wigglytuff. So very concerning, those speedsters. I think now we need to see them targeted much more heavily than we did in the first round.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. They've made some changes in the patch where they've brought in a new stat that they call defense penetration, and apparently the plan was that it would make it harder for attackers to survive, but would still leave speedsters struggling against defenders. Now, I don't know about you, Speedy, but if I think of a defender, I think they're probably going to have a big defensive stat, right? So if you give defense penetration to a speedster, that means they're going to pretty much ignore quite a bit of defense. That doesn't sound like that works quite well for defenders, right?
No, I even mentioned it actually early on in the show yesterday, and we had just gotten started, that the patch notes were very interesting to me. The fact that they said still struggle against defenders. And I was like, is that what that is? Is that maybe something about Pokemon Unite I don't quite understand yet, because that one's not quite lining up for me yet. But no, those speedsters are able to tear through just about everything. It's nice to see that certain Pokemon like the Snorlax can still survive when being collapsed on by an entire team. Doesn't matter about the defense shredding. It has the utility to be able to survive that. So there are still really important picks to counteract the new speedster buffs. However, they're clearly some of the strongest things on the entire map right now. Anywhere you go in any of these stadiums, they're just going to be tearing through everything, tearing through your jungle, tearing through your attackers, some of your defenders. The supports don't seem that easy to shred through. So it really comes down to just a few really important Pokemon picks if you're running into those speedsters, especially if it's double speedster on one side.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about how powerful a lot of these Pokemons are in Pokemon Unite, that might be why Sanguine have decided to stay on this orange side. Of course, if you get first pick here, Speedy, yeah, you get a really good Pokemon, but two are going to be picked by Sanguine straight away. So I feel like with the state of the game right now, that's actually more of a benefit for your team.
Yeah, I am big question marks here for the side of Nouns, banning out their one useful utility against those speedsters. I am not really sure what the idea there is. Maybe with the first pick this time, yes, opting to steal that Talonflame. So that makes a lot of sense then. Banning out that Snorlax, knowing it worked so well for you and wanting to stop Sanguine from having that same advantage. And it looks like Sanguine are going to go on the offensive as well. Both of these teams are opting for a really quick just picks on damage. What is going to get us our quickest eliminations? What are the strongest threats in the game right now?
Yeah, and I think these are interesting picks. I was going to say, I suspect Absol over Zeraora just due to that defense penetration being on Absol and not Zeraora. So fair play to Scout. Split here with the Miraidon. There's about 4 attackers that are still viable in this meta, despite what they're going up against right here. And that is the Miraidon, the Mewtwo-Y, the Inteleon, and the Espeon. So Split taking that is going to be really important because they can use the Electro Drift if they really want to. It makes it incredibly hard to catch, and it's actually very effective against these speedsters here, Speedy. Nouns Esports, they're going to stick to their plan. Toon is picking up that Masquerada. Indy taking that Umbreon, means they can use the Wish to utilize more of a support build without having to take a support.
Yeah, it does look like that's going to be the case. I'm not sure if either of these players are going to be picking up any supports, but it looks like it's going to be a Crustle, so a very defensive utility. They're going to be playing a big trapping game here, something for their speedsters to be executing on, and that Mewtwo-Y even gets picked as well. So with only one speedster to counter on the other side, you talked about that teleport. Mewtwo-Y is going to have it. It's of course that Miraidon is there as well, who does have a lot of range for movement. So plenty of reason to still pick that Mewtwo-Y, but wow, Nouns have got a really good draft here.
They do. I like the side strike that they're likely going to run on Mewtwo-Y as well, especially because if Miraidon does go for that charge beam, it's nearly uncontested range. There's not many Pokemon that has the range that Miraidon's charge beam has. And I think the side strike is going to be really important to try and counter that. Really interesting comps coming out from both of these teams here. Nouns going for a much more frontline and heavy burst from their speedsters, whilst that Aegislash is an interesting pick for Sanguine here, Speedy. With the recent changes it had, it's actually a very viable pick, and it's very good against speedsters because Wide Guard does a huge amount of stun, and it gives you those boosters that you can just cut down the health on those speedsters with.
Yeah, they are. That's their one caveat, of course, is the fact that they are still glass cannons. So if you can have the survivability to outlast them, like we saw Nouns doing in the mid game and in the early game in the last one, you just have to have something that's going to do that more long term. When those evolutions come online in the last match that we saw, those stats start to even out. You're starting to run into something that you can't just counter with your higher stat pool. Eventually, you do actually have to be able to counter them with your utility and be grouping better. So we're going to get this one kicked off, and this time it will be Nouns with the Talonflame in their hands. It feels like such an important piece of utility, but Sanguine do still have the Absol, and that was one of the huge problems for Nouns last time. So we'll see if their different picks will help them adapt this time.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting they've thrown the Talonflame into the central area because it doesn't really struggle in lane. Acrobatics is one of the strongest secure moves and damaging moves for the early, but instead Sprigatito is here. They're going to struggle against the Will-O-Wisp. It might be able to do a decent amount of damage, but it takes a lot to take down a Phantom. Luckily, the Dwebble is also there, but Sanguine just want to continue with the aggression here, Speedy. See what they can take away with this wild farm. But now they have to back up. Miraidon getting nearly caught out by Sprigatito, but it looks like they are going to try and hunt it down.
Only in Pokemon Unite will you hear that sentence, Miraidon almost getting taken down by Sprigatito. That was a lot of pressure coming forward, despite the fact that that Dwebble was very low. Now it's already an evolution. Oh, but quick eliminations coming through. That Absol is so deadly. I am going to have nightmares about it tonight.
I mean, Absol's my favorite Pokemon to play on Pokemon Unite, buddy. I mean, we've struggled before this patch, but now, we're having a field day. Ganon, though, because they're so confident on that Absol, maybe misplayed there, shouldn't really be diving into that Flux Zone. Now they've been caught out. It is Electro Drift on the Miraidon, but the Talonflame, yes, it is now a Talonflame at the 8:25 minutes. They are able to pick up a quick KO. It's pretty much going either way here so far, Speedy. Even points on the board, the levels are pretty crazy.
Yeah, starting to see why they went for that jungle. We do have a Talonflame at around the 8:30 mark, 8:25 mark there, so very clear why. This Miraidon in a really sticky situation, caught between the two players, and it gets eliminated in a situation where it felt like there were a couple of chances to escape, so maybe overplayed once again from the side of Sanguine. But they do have their top lane pretty shut down right now. They're able to hold out on this. That Umbreon is in a really dangerous situation and soon to be taken out if this Absol can get one more attack, and it does. So now Mewtwo gonna have to try to stay mobile. It does have that Y Mega Evolution. It's able to put out a little bit of a threat, actually, and back everything off. Doesn't have to make a full escape. Talonflame a little too late to stop the score, but they do find an elimination on that Speedster. They're doing a much better job of shutting down the Absol from Sanguine than they did last game.
Yeah, absolutely so. And Destu just showcasing how hard it's going to be to catch the Mewtwo Y. But what is fascinating, buddy, is that this Umbreon really does get KO'd quickly against these speedsters. We're finally in a meta where Umbreon doesn't take 5 years to get KO'd. All of that central farm as well goes to Nouns Esports. They do want to poke into this bush. It's going to be Mean Look paired with that Wish, maybe to try and lock down those speedsters wherever they can. So smart play from Nouns Esports so far.
So far, this Mewtwo is also helping to keep up the range fight. It's not against the Miraidon right now, but doing a great job finding that execute the Absol without taking any damage. Finds 3 in a row, puts that streak on the board and says, you guys go ahead and clean up the rest. I'm going to go ahead and score real quick.
I mean, they've managed to dominate the top lane finally, but down here, Nouns Esports have at least been able to keep it competitive. Good effort from them. Free Regieleki for Aegislash to lock in. That's going to put some pressure onto that T2 pad. We're probably going to see Nouns Esports run down to this T1 in this basement lane, see if they can grab that. Sableye pulling up a bit of a distraction here against Toon, but Masquerade, a huge amount of damage that they're able to put onto Nvidia. They go back to the Pokemon Center.
Yeah, that was a really quick knockout there. Now, another chance for a fight here. Moving toward the middle of the map could get dangerous. The Crustle actually blocking themselves off from moving any further. They finally do find that Miraidon who tries to re-engage, find the Aegislash as well. They block off a couple of these players from Sanguine, and they've trapped them, but it wasn't good for the Crustle. Got trapped with a little bit, not enough offense, truthfully.
Chaos Glow coming out there. They weren't able to find anybody with it. Absol does find two, but here comes Adesu, and the fly doesn't connect, but Adesu will. They have that quick damage they can drop with their basics. They're not even Mega yet, but the Mega Gauge is nearly there. The next team fight, they will have it. Sanguine need to be cautious of that.
Yeah, certainly need to play protective. I mean, somehow Nouns Esports have really turned this one quickly. They're starting to push forward now. They're feeling a lot more confident. They're playing safer this time around. I think they're starting to put a little bit more respect towards Sanguine. They realize that their execution, even moving further into the game, is still very dangerous. They found an elimination on their own pad there. They're looking to find another one. A really, really nice block off from the Crustal there, preventing an escape, but gets eliminated themselves instead.
Bright Future Meteor Storm from the Rhydon just to buy themselves a little bit of space. They aren't able to find KOs with it, but it does what it needs to do. And there's the coup de grace from the Aegislash. But whilst all that's happening, a Floral Flourish from Toon is going to take down two. And absolutely massive defense here from Nouns Esports. Toon finds a triple KO, scores the 50 dunk, a free Reggie steal for them as well. Nouns Esports coming out on top of that one there.
Yeah, they played that engagement just about perfectly. They're going to be able to find this Reggie steal as well. So now those attack buffs, I think that's something that they really, really needed here to be able to take these fights quicker. They continued having to fall back to their pad to find an elimination. Now I think they're going to be able to take some of those forward fights a little bit better. Although Sanguine do lose their Sableye, who always seems to be just a little bit too deep getting caught out. The Regieleki may be a last chance for them to try and gain an advantage, but they don't have the players to take it just yet.
The difficulty as well with these species is, of course, they're everywhere, Speedy. Everywhere on this map, top lane, bottom lane, wherever they need to be, they are constantly running up and down. I think we did see a Floatstone on that Talonflame, just providing that extra bit of speed as well. And that's really difficult for you to handle as a team because you think, yes, we can push this. They're in that top lane. And then all of a sudden, they're in your face. They lock down this Lecky with the huge amount of damage that they have. Are they going to push it? Sanguine look like they're prepared to defend it at least. We did see Scout trying to see if they can pick up Talonflame there, but it looks like they've made the right decision to retreat from the side of Nouns Esports. Nearly are able to pick up the Umbreon, though. The coup de grace does exactly that. The Flame Sweep pushes Trevenant into the back line, and there we go. Toon cleans it up with that flower trick. Boom, back to the Pokemon Center. Absol is as well. Nouns Esports, they weren't looking like they wanted to push it, but they have found easy KOs. It goes into the pad. Now they can get an overcap.
They are playing so patiently right now. The Sableye, the last one left, but that was such a clutch unite from the Talonflame there, bringing that Trevenant out because the pressure was really mounting. I mean, the entirety of Sanguine was grouped really well, able to support each other beautifully, and pulling that Trevenant away, not being able to be that blockage, that wall anymore, was huge for Nouns to be able to take those scattered fights. The Absol even having to back off during that fight because it didn't have any protection anymore.
Now we're going to see some zoning coming from Bruv here on this basement lane, whilst the rip on the red dice is coming in. Of course, probably not the buff that they wanted, but if they can get it for free, that's absolutely what they're going to do, whilst we have the rest of Sanguine getting set up for this Rayquaza that's about to spawn.
Yeah, once again, they do take the Regice before actually taking the Rayquaza fight, and it's at no cost. They pick up a really good buff there, and now they're taking this fight against the Trevenant. See if they can cut it down with that wall there. They certainly will, so it's going to be one player down. Sanguine are going to try to jump this Rayquaza and find the execution really quick. It's going to be up in the air, but no, the Talonflame is going to take it once again. That is the beauty of stealing in the pick phase. An immediate surrender from Sanguine. I mean, at this point, I would have probably just surrendered the second I saw Nouns get the Talonflame in their hands, but Sanguine put up a great fight. They really did lean on that Absol a lot, and for good reason. It was finding such great momentum for them in the early game, but as it moved on, Nouns Esports really just took it out of their hands. They didn't have much utility other than that Absol. They weren't able to make use of Miraidon in the right ways to move in and out of fights. The Aegislash just wasn't having the survivability that you'd hope from an all-rounder. So it was a pretty quick one there for Nouns Esports to wrap up.
Yeah, that it was. I do like the decision from Sanguine to just go for the rip there. TVPR got caught out, and if you don't have your defender at the Rayquaza pit, you're going to have a really tough time, to be honest. So I understand going for the rip. You do have Miraidon, Aegislash, and Absol that are able to do quite a quick rip, but it's just one of those where W3 has a Talonflame, doesn't get any better than Fly Talonflame for secure, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, so many times. How many did we see? The Regielekis, the Rayquaza, the Rayquaza in the last game, the Reggies down in basement in the last game as well. This time, yeah, just about everything going the way of Noun Esports. There, it's all looking pretty blue. One Regieleki going the way of Sanguine in that one, but otherwise, it was very heavy on Noun Esports, getting those buffs, keeping up the high octane gameplay. I mean, that's what you expect from the speedsters, and that's what you're going to get every single time. That pick phase, I mean, I had said it before they started. They had an amazing pick phase. It was looking great for them in the draft. And it was going to be on Sanguine to find an answer, and I don't think that they really had a solid one. At that point, it really is just let's go ahead and forfeit, dust off our hands. We're going to have another draft phase coming up. We can find the correct man. We've learned enough to do much better next time. So I think Sanguine having the first pick in this one is going to be a big advantage for them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the thing is, though, there's only so many speeches that you can ban out, right? You only have the option for 2 bans. Maybe you ban 2, take the other, but there's so many that are so viable right now, and it's really a matter of finding that counterplay to that. It's difficult. Adesu did a really good job on Mewtwo Y, showcasing why that's probably one of the attackers that has had a rise in popularity due to these recent changes, but Sanguine haven't found the answer for that speed of pressure just yet. That's what they need to do coming into this, because of course, they lose this game, Speedy, they're going straight down into that losers bracket.
Yeah, double elimination bracket, like we mentioned before this game started. There will still be a chance for the losing team here, but it's another 1-1. This tournament has been so close all across the board. For anybody who's been keeping up with the way Swiss round went, there were so many games that ended 2-1. It's been so close. Some teams that were really dark horse picks, underdogs even, taking games 2-1 against some of these really big name teams that everybody recognizes, rooting for. So it's been a real dangerous one. Some of the teams that we have here in top 8 took full sets off of top 4 EUIC teams. So this is just, I mean, all up in the air. It's anybody's game at this point. I think that's what's so exciting is when the changes come into the game like this, it gives a chance for new teams to find something that they're good at and show why they are also a top competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go, the ban phase for this game 3. Let's see, because we do actually have a swap coming into this. Sanguine are going to take that first pick. Nouns Esports are now going to have access to 2 huge picks straight off the get-go.
Yeah, and it looks like they're not changing their ways too much, starting off with the Blissey, but it does look like there may be a Mewtwo Y ban coming up here. Now, on the side of Nouns, they are targeting one of those speedsters, and it's going to be the Gengar, one that we have seen them use, but they're not opting for here, maybe because of the way the picks are going to go this time. And it's the Inteleon as well, so they do go for a lot more of those relevant damage dealers rather than supports this time around.
Yeah, I find it interesting that Nouns Esports think it's really important to get rid of the Gengar. Of course, they know how powerful it is. But it does mean Talonflame is going to go to the side of Ganon TTV. They're going to lock in the Absol and Snorlax in return. That is crazy, Speedy. 2 of the strongest Pokemon in this game right now, straight on the board for Nouns Esports.
Yeah, I think it's great having that mix of running the Snorlax with the Absol, being able to counter the speedsters that are approaching while still playing out the Absol and having your own speedster pressure. It is Nouns this time taking it instead of Sanguine, so a little bit of a change up. Last time we saw them take the Talonflame. This time we're going to see them take the Absol. They're going to bring the Umbreon as well, so they really are going for survivability here. I'm curious if they're going to try to pump as many resources as they can to boosting these few damage dealers and trying to make them as strong as they possibly can for quick fights. It seems like we've had it one way or the other. One of these teams wants to take it as long as they can and try to outlast, while the other team wants to take really quick fights and find fast executions. This time it looks like both teams are kind of going with some heavy supports and just going to try to feed everything they can to those damage dealers.
Yeah, it's fascinating that we're now in a stage of Pokemon Unite where every team is trying to work out how do we counter these speedsters. So many are coming our way. Toon locks in the Lucario. That's still a very viable pick, to be honest. Power Up Punch is still quite strong. E-Speed is in a bit of a resurgence as well. So this is interesting. W3 is going to take that likely in the top lane. Toon on that Absol is definitely going to be scary for Sanguine.
Yeah, gotta be very scary to run into it. It was scary when you were using it. You have to imagine it'll be scary as well running into it. But Ganon locking in that Talonflame for the second time was definitely missing it in the last game. Picked it up here once again, and despite a good performance in game two, game three here, it looks like you're going to be able to find your secures onto those objectives again if you play the same way you did last time. Of course, Absol also has the ability to do so, but we've seen it much more efficiently done from the Talonflames in this match. So I do think Ganon is leaning toward, Ganon and Sanguine in general are leaning toward focusing the objective more than just trying to win every team fight they can. They want something to secure because they know that it's a very back and forth meta. Having two speedsters or having one, they're just as dangerous, and any of them can be a carry potential at any time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to be honest, I feel like going for the objectives is a smart play. Of course, if you manage to get all of those basement Regis, the Lekis, the pressure is all on the opposite team. And if you get that global experience, you get those buffs, you're going to come into Rayquaza feeling like a high level team. So it's a really smart tactic. I like it from them. But here we go. We're going into this game free. Sanguine now on your purple side. Nouns Esports on your orange side.
Yeah, and Psyduck is looking like my kind of guy right now. I definitely like the fit that he's rocking in this one. It is interesting to see the Absol on the same side again, but we have to remember that is Nouns this time. This is the first time that they're using it. It was in the hands of Sanguine twice. This time it's going to be on the side of Nouns. So these teams changing up the way that they're going to be playing this just a little bit. Nouns did pick up the Pikachu once again, who's going to join Snorlax down here in basement. It's the Phantump again, eating up a lot of damage early on, and there's just not a lot of damage output here in the basement lane right now.
Nah, it's definitely the kind of Pokemon that will just take all of it, give it all up, get that focus band, and get back to a healthy state. Snorlax tries to do the same here with a little nap, unable to get the acrobatics across the board. Is guaranteed TV, but it's a bird, it can fly, it's quick. They pick up that KO instantly there. NPR managing to get a 4 dunk in, but Absol has turned up. The Electro Web is going to get a KO onto the Phantump. Now they need to make a decision. Do we get out of here? They do have level 5. That's really good for Absol, and they do find Talonflame maybe staying a little bit too long in that area there, Speedy.
Yeah, I think the Fletchender there was trying to harness its inner Talonflame. Not only did it want the evolution, it wanted to act like it was already there. Maybe just a little bit too early to take that fight, but I do think there's a chance for that fight to go either way once that evolution does come through, as long as those levels stay even.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mean luck here for the Umbreon. It's going to be really good against this Masquerada, but it's going to be difficult to stack up against it with Sableye causing so much disruption. Toon looks like they want to find Masquerada, unable to with the Night Slash, so they're going to back up onto this pad, whilst Umbreon finds the KO onto Sableye.
Yeah, it's a quick one, and that Sableye seems to be a little bit of fodder most of the time, thrown in there to just be eliminated whenever needed to make sure that another Pokemon is able to get out of the fight. Levels so far pretty even across the board. Importantly, the Talonflame is up and is at even level with the Absol right now, and there it is, bringing out a ton of damage, taking this fight not only against one Pikachu, but also the Absol, able to eliminate 2 damage dealers, and that'll be an open goal.
Wow, that's so dangerous when it has its team around it, providing that block of damage. Also, the disruption that Psyduck can do. They score the points. 22 points is definitely ambitious at that stage, but it does enable the rest of Sanguine to get back to the T1, Speedy.
Yeah, and level 9 now for that Talonflame as well after scoring there. Has both the orange and purple aura up. Has that level 9. Heading into this fight using a fly. You can't blame them for being brave. Speaking of which, there goes that Unite. It's not going to catch anything just yet. That level 10 came up. I thought we were going to see a big play there.
Yeah, they at least find the Absol, but that block was huge from Bruv. It stopped that Talonflame from being able to get all the way back to the pad, but still, Sanguine come out on top. This is the power of having that level lead as a speedster. 2 levels extra on the entirety of Nouns Esports right now means that it's just too difficult for them to handle when it's paired with this Trevenant and Psyduck. It's a difficult pairing to break through on, and that's why we're seeing Nouns Esports put more pressure onto this top pad, trying to alleviate the pressure down there by putting it up here. But oh my god, Toon puts in an absolute show. The Floral Flourish does a huge amount of damage, but they do score the points. They take down the Umbreon, but they do get KO'd in return.
Yeah, I think you'll take that trade for sure. You're close to getting rid of this tier 1 pad. You can definitely overcap it. That Regieleki is somewhat open, but we do see Sanguine starting to move their way up. And I do really like what the Talonflame is going for here as well. Finding a lot of those executions. I mean, that was just a 1v1. That just felt like bullying. But I like that Regirock boost there, providing the defense as if Talonflame needed anything else. Now the 1v1 against the Absol, it has a defensive utility to keep it healthy in that fight. So it can become really dangerous as this Talonflame builds up. It's already level 11.
Yeah, they're going to use that flame sweep to see if they can get the Absol off the pad. They're not able to. They use the eject button to find them with the fly. That one doesn't work, but the flame charge does. Absol gets deleted in their own flux zone. But there goes Pikachu, pairing that with the mean look. That does mean that Talonflame gets defeated. 21 dunk onto that pad. 206 on the board now for Sanguine. They've given themselves the lead at least, despite Talonflame getting KO'd there and given a huge amount of experience speed.
And it looks like the Sableye might just go down again. No, barely able to make its way out, but it almost wants to re-engage. Pikachu tries to defend itself here. Not going to be able to stay alive long enough. That Absol will come in and show why it can keep up with the Talonflame, but it doesn't find much more than one.
That was a risky move by Sableye. He had literally no HP on the bar, buddy, and he's looking to engage. Interesting play. Of course, it does work for them. So, hey, if it works for sure. All of this experience is going to go to the side of Sanguine yet again. We do see Nouns Esports showing their face for this basement Reggie. It is going to be a Reggie steal, so that's the buff every team wants to go for. They're just waiting to engage onto the Talonflame. There's the Volt Tackle. The Flame Sweep is going to keep them around, though. Trevenant finds Absol because the fly did a huge amount of damage, and Sanguine have the advantage yet again, Speedy. Here comes Bruv HD trying to put up some zone in here against Sanguine, but is it going to be enough? Scout trying to see if they can get away from it. There's the Floral Flourish. The Power Nap comes out just to keep them around. There's the full power Sai. That's going to buy them some more space. Snorlax falls. Here goes the Umbreon. They've been able to wipe out everybody that is here from Nouns Esports. If they can take Pikachu and Absol, that'll be an ace, but there's the Midnight Slash. The Thunderstorm comes in as well. They still don't find the KO onto Talonflame, though. Psyduck causes a huge distraction. This Registeel has now reset, Speedy. It is available for anybody to try and grab, but here comes the rest of Nouns Esports.
Yeah, that was huge from the Lucario and Snorlax there, being able to survive for such a long time that Sanguine weren't able to actually secure that Registeel. They were never able to take a full fight against it. So instead, they do send some of their team members up top to take that Regieleki, make Nouns split their attention. But that was a really good funnel in and out from Nouns, getting their players to survive just long enough to get those damage dealers back in to put out huge damage and pick up on whatever was made low in that first fight.
Smart play by Sanguine as well to push that Lecky, though. So now the top lane is struggling. It has meant that it's only Bruv down here as the Snorlax. That was one heck of an effort as well. Nearly able to sneak it with that basic. The Power Nap comes out just to keep them around, but there's so much damage coming their way. Utilizing the block means that they can get out of here. That is some illegal movement from Snorlax.
Yeah, Snorlax getting out of there, does not want to see any of that pressure, not confident that they could take the win at this point, doesn't want to eat up all that damage despite being a defender. I mean, this Talonflame just eating up everything. If you're going to try to push that jungle, you have to expect you're going to go down. Importantly, the Absol here for Nouns was able to catch level with Talonflame, so they are sitting now at the same level. They do have similar capabilities, but the Absol, of course, in the Pokemon Center right now, trying to get itself back up, and actually some buffs being split here between the Pikachu and the Snorlax. So the aura is being spread a little bit. No single particular target that they want to give that to, especially the Absol, you would think would want to take those.
Absolutely. I mean, there's only 4 points between these teams right now, Speedy. So 100%, this Rayquaza is the deciding factor of this game yet again. 2 level 14s on the side of Sanguine, being those speedsters. Absol's there as well. We're going to see where the engage comes in. A straight dive into that pit. And here we go. We're ripped off. The Thunderstorm rays on in. There's the Midnight Slash as well. The Floral Flourish comes out. But who finds it? It's Nouns Esports. It's Absol. They lock it in. They're rushing to score these points. Talonflame trying to cut off the Umbreon. They have a huge amount of damage, and they have been able to take a couple of shields. Absol falls, but I don't think they're going to be able to come back from this, despite Sableye trying to score that 86 points.
Yeah, not a chance that they're going to be able to find this one. That 86 does come through, and it was just 1 over, just enough for it to actually break that tier 2 there. It was looking close in score for just a moment, but with that Rayquaza being taken, Nouns are now able to get such a huge lead. The block here from the Snorlax trying to keep them from defending their own goal zone now and saying, this is my side, I've taken over. Just surviving, taking 4 players and surviving long enough for the rest of the team to defend the base from the one piece of attack that's still left. Now, finally, the Snorlax does go down. There's a minute remaining and 200 points separate these teams. I have a feeling Nouns are going to be able to mount a defense far greater than what Sanguine are going to be able to push through.
Yeah, I mean, Absol's got their Midnight Slash. Pikachu has their Thunderstorm. You can see the rest of them trying to see if they can get some experience to get their own Unite moves back. But they're going to push this T1 pad here. Of course, they are able to jump onto it as well. If this fly doesn't land a huge amount of damage, in fact, it lands none. So that's going to be a long cooldown that is on there. There's the Midnight Slash paired with the Thunderstorm. They take out 2 on the side of Sanguine. And without that Talonflame being there, there's not going to be enough damage that they can throw down for them to take advantage here. Triple KO for the Absol, and Brother HD sat on that home pad. That's not what I want to see if I'm trying to approach and score there.
No, absolutely not. 5 seconds remain. There is a score here from the Sableye, but obviously it is not going to nearly catch the score, the lead that Nouns Esports have made. So Nouns Esports going to take the win 2-1 and move themselves on to the semifinals in the upper bracket. Sanguine have not been fully eliminated. They will be going down to the lower bracket, and they'll have to fight for their tournament lives here. Look how much scoring there from Bruv, just taking up so much space, blockaging everything through, and then scoring at any possible opportunity.
Great play by both of these teams. It came down to the wire, 4 points between them as Rayquaza hit the map there. Great play. Toon 85k on that Absol, 84k with Ganon on that Talonflame. That's pretty much going to be the story of today, I think.
Yeah, so even between those two speedsters. And then, of course, the big difference there, I think, a really surprising difference being that Scout had 71k damage, and nobody had really matched that. The Pikachu on the side of Nouns had 60k, but that's a pretty big discrepancy. So it wasn't won through sheer damage alone. I mean, we can see all of the advantages that were given the way of Sanguine. You would have thought that they should have had it with all the objectives that they secured themselves through the game.
Yeah, I mean, when there's a Ray, there's a way. That's exactly what Nouns do,
Yeah.
and they managed to come out on top.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, Midnight Slash is one of the best Unite moves for team fights because it just spreads a huge amount of damage. You throw that Psycho Cut in there as well, and it's doing even more speedy. So it's really good for those huge team fights that are in the Rayquaza pit because it's going to spread all of that damage around, and they utilize that to get a win here. Nouns Esports being able to progress on through from the quarterfinals. They're going to be in the semis, I believe, up against Nemesis. And we see Sanguine fall down into the losers bracket up against the gang.
Nouns and Nemesis, that is going to be a really good match. And so was this one. I mean, I can't imagine we're going to get any closer, really, than being in a game 3 with 4 points separating past the 200 score marker. Yeah, I think I can say I'm pretty excited for the semifinals match here.